standing too close to they God. Luck don't get lost, and luck don't get found. Luck just goes where the God is standing. Grot saying Armageddon. Now, I'm gonna tell yer about the big scrap at Death Mire, and I'm gonna tell it proper, 'cause I was there, right in the thick of it with me own blaster and everything, while most of the gits what go round tellin' it was somewhere else entirely, probably hiding in a pipe. I know this 'cause hiding in pipes is a professional skill, and I know every good pipe on that side of the hive personally. Me name's Scrib. I'm a grot. Yer can already tell this story's gonna be true, 'cause an orc would have started with himself. Death Mire is one of the big humy hives on Armageddon, and the bit we was in had been bombed so many times by so many different people that nobody could remember whose bombs was whose no more. There wasn't much left standing. Walls what had forgot their buildings what had forgot their roofs. Craters with older craters inside 'em, like the ground was, keepin' souvenirs. And mud what went down further than thinking about is comfortable. Orcs love Armageddon. They say it's holy ground. Me, I reckon it's 'cause the whole planet looks like something an orc just finished with. There was 20 of us grots in the mob that morning, plus 2 runthirds with whips and loud opinions. And over the lot of us, the boss of all runts hisself, Zodgrod Wurtsnaga. Old Zodgrod's the only orc I ever met what knows grots by name. Don't go thinking that's affection. He learns your name so that when something goes wrong, the blame arrives at the correct address without delay. But I'll say this, and I'll say it proud. Being known by name to Zodgrod Wurtsnaga is the closest thing to being a somebody that a grot can get, and he knew mine. Mostly he shouted it, but knowing is knowing. The other thing you need to understand before I get to the fighting is points. Orcs count teeth. But teeth is money, and money is a thing a bigger git can take off yer, and every git is a bigger git when you're a grot. Points is different. Points is to score grots keep between grots for kills and loot and feats of professional daring, and points can't be took 'cause they live in the tellin'. Wicket, that's me mate Wicket. You'll hear more of him. None of it flatterin'. Wicket had owed me 4 points since the last scrap on account of a heavy stubber I shot the gunner off of, what he claimed was already mostly dead. The gunner, not the stubber. The dispute was ongoing. Grot disputes is always ongoing. It's what we got instead of history books. So there we was, 20 grots and day whole green tide behind us, waiting in the ruins for the word to go. And when I say the whole tide, I want you to see it like I saw it, which is from knee height. You don't see orcs from down there, you see boots. Boots and shins and the undersides of shooters, stretching back through the smoke like a forest what's about to fall on someone. The noise of 'em all breathing and clanking and arguing was like weather, and then over the top of all of it, taller than the broke buildings, there was him, the big boss, the prophet, Gazgakul Mag Urukthraka. I ain't gonna describe him, 'cause yer don't describe him, same as yer don't describe a mountain falling on yer. You just make your peace and step lively. What I'll tell yer instead is the rule every grot on Armageddon knows. Yer don't look at the big boss direct, yer look near him, and yer get out of his shadow before his shadow gets on top of yer. That morning his shadow went over our mob like a door closing, and 20 grots stepped sideways at the same time without none of us planning it. Professionals. But next to him, and this is the important bit, so listen, proper. Next to him there was a little gold flame and all that smoke. A banner taller than the grot carrying it had any right to lift, waving steady as anything. Makari, now, orcs got gods. They got Gork, what's brutal but cunning, and Mork, what's cunning but brutal, and don't never mix 'em up in front of an orc with a choppa and a theological temper, but Gork and Mork is big and far away, and they look after orcs, 'cause that's their job. Grot's got Makari, and Makari yer can see. Think about it. He's a grot, same as me, same as Wicket. He stands next to the biggest, loudest, most shot-at orc in the galaxy, in the middle of every scrap worth naming, holding up a big gold flag what might as well say, shoot here. And nothing ever happens to him. Not never. Bullets go round him, buildings fall next to him. The galaxy has been trying to kill that one small grot for longer than Hive's has stood, and the galaxy has failed every single time. That ain't luck. Luck don't stretch that far. That's a god. And here's the thing about luck, what every grot learns early, or don't get to learn nothing else. Luck ain't like teeth. It don't grow back. There's only so much of it in any one place, like water in a puddle. And Makari collects it. Drains it right up out of the ground, 100 paces all round him, quiet as breathing, the way a squig drinks a puddle dry and looks at your innocent after. That's why nothing never happens to him, and that's why you're never stand too close to the god. Remember that bit. It matters later. Day orders come down, the line the way orders do, getting shorter and louder each time they was repeated, till by the time they reached us, they was just take the good spots, grab the loot, crump the tanks, and whatever humies is left minding 'em. Proper orky orders dem. Even a grot can get behind orders like that, 'cause where there's loot, there's points, and where there's points, there's me. We was just about to move out when the humies, what we had been assured was mostly dead already, sent us their opinion on the matter. It come in like the sky clearing its throat. I didn't see the shells. Nobody sees the shells. What I saw was one of the side mobs of boys, a full 20 of the lads off on our flank, minding their own pre-battle business of shoving each other, turn into a fountain. Mud went up, wall went up, bits of wall what was already up come down. The sound arrived a heartbeat late, like it had stopped to pick up a mate, and it hit me in the chest and the teeth and the fillings of me thoughts. And out of the smoke behind it, grinding over the rubble on tracks wider than I am long, come 2 of 'em. Humi tanks. The big square kind, the ones what look like an angry building what got sick of waiting to be attacked and decided to commute. Guns on the front, guns on the sides, guns on the guns, and the main cannon so big that looking down it felt like falling in. I found out after the humies call 'em Rogel Dorns, what I assume was a humie what resembled a wall, and I'll give the humies dis. They do know how to build a thing what's hard to argue with. Now here's the bit I still think about at nights. When the smoke come off that mob of boys, more than half of 'em was still standing. I want you to sit with that like I had to. 2 tank cannons, a full surprise, shells what make craters you could keep a squiggeth in, and the lads just sort of shook like dogs coming out of water. Bits of their mates rained down on 'em, and they caught some of it, on account of some of it being useful, and then they turned round and looked at them tanks with an expression I can only call grateful. If that barrage had landed on us grots, there wouldn't have been enough left to hold the points dispute over. There wouldn't have been enough left to dispute. Orks is built different, and don't let nobody tell yer otherwise, especially not an orc, 'cause he'll be telling yer from very close up. The other question, and trust me, it got asked loudly with crumpin', was how the tanks knew right where to shoot first go, through all that smoke and ruin, and the answer was sneaky humies. A little mob of 'em, scouts, had crept up close in the dark, right through our side of the ruins, past boys, past sentries, past everything, and set up their talkie boxes and their peering scopes and called the numbers back to the tanks like a grot calling odds at a squig fight. I'm gonna be honest with yer, 'cause this story's got enough lies in it already from other tellers. When I heard that, the first thing I felt was professional respect. Sneaking through an orc camp at night is craftsman's work. Second thing I felt was relief it wasn't grots what done it, 'cause somebody was gonna get blamed, and the address of blame is usually us. And then the third thing happened what was the big boss. I didn't hear the start of it. Nobody hears the start of a where, same as nobody hears the start of an avalanche. By the time yer knows it's happening, you're already in it. It come up out of the ground and in through me boots. It was in the mud and the smoke and the fillings of me teeth. 10,000 orcs opened their chests and let out the word what's a war and a god and a good time all at once. And the ruins of Death Mire rattled like a tin roof in a storm. And I am not ashamed to tell yer that me and 19 other grots and both run-thirds was screaming it too, high and horrible, like the tide had a whistle on top, and the whole green world moved. Everything what happened next happened at a run, so that's how I'll tell it. The tide went through them ruins like floodwater, finding out the dam's been unlocked. Every mob picked its own road, and every road pointed at them 2 tanks, 'cause that's the thing about orcs. Yer can give 'em orders about key spots and loot all yer like, but show 'em the 2 biggest, shootiest things on the field, and every plan simplifies itself remarkable. The plan was now crump the tanks, and also crump anything what got in between, what was the part everyone was looking forward to, except, and I could feel the disappointment rolling off the lads like heat, there wasn't much in between. Empty ruins, broke walls. The Humies had already died here proper years back, and there just wasn't the defenders to go round. 20 folks and orcs all dressed up, and the party was 2 tanks and change. But the change, my friends, the change was ours. We come round the shoulder of a collapsed hab, and there they was, the sneaky Humies, the scouts, the very gits what had called the tanks down on the lads, dug in among the rubble with their long rifles, and their missile tube and their talkie box aerial poking up like a whisker, and between us and them, nothing but open ground and opportunity. Zodgrod didn't give a speech. Zodgrod ain't a speech orc. He pointed to grab Zappa. That's his snagaprod. Don't ask what it does. The answer's upsettin'. And he said, in that voice like gravel going downhill, "With me, your horrible little miracles." And 20 grots went over that ground like spilt marbles. If marbles had blastas and grudges, I'd like to tell yer it was a fair fight. It wasn't, and I'm glad, 'cause fair fights is how yer die famous, and I'd rather live obscure. Grot blastas ain't much one at a time. One at a time, a grot blasta is a strongly worded letter. But 20 at once from 3 directions, with Zodgrod wading in behind, zapping and snagging, and both run-thirds using their whips on anything what moved in any direction, including ours. Them scouts had crept past a whole army of orcs in the dark without a scratch, and then the smallest things on the battlefield come over the rocks and at 'em. I got 2. 2. One with the blasta, clean, no arguments even from Wicket, and one with me knife in a manner I will describe at parties, but not here, 'cause me mum might hear this someday, and I'll tell yer what else I saw, 'cause it deserves tellin'. Der talkie Humie, the one with the box on his back, he kept talking into it the whole time. Numbers and words, calm as yer like, while the rest of his mates was getting it around him. Calling the tanks, telling 'em where we was, where the mobs was, right up until Zodgrod's shadow fell across him, and even then the last thing he did wasn't run. He put his hand flat on that beacon, like he was telling it something private. Sneaky and brave with it. If that one had been born a grot, he'd have gone far. I docked him no points for dying. Dying happens to nearly everyone. Somewhere in all this, the field was filling up with the sound of the main event. So let me swing to tellin' over there, 'cause yer need to see what I saw when I got up on the high rubble to count me points in peace. The tanks had kept shooting. I'll give 'em dat and all. Dem crews never stopped working, the big cannons going and the little guns chattering and every shot finding green, but yer can't shoot a tide. Yer can shoot into a tide. What's a different thing, and all it does is rearrange the front of it. 2 full mobs of boys hit them tanks at the same time from 2 sides. 40-odd lads all wanting to be first and on the way in. And this is true. I watched it happen, and it took less time than telling it. A mob of Hume horse riders come galloping in from the flank to save their tanks. Horses on Armageddon with spears. I'm told they're called Rough Riders, and their spears explode, and I'm sure that's a very exciting fact for whoever's on the end of one. The tide didn't even slow down. The lads went through them horse boys the way a wave goes through a fence, and the only sign they'd ever been there was that some of the boys come out the other side holding souvenirs. And then the mobs reached the tanks, and the whole battlefield went clang. I mean it, clang. 40 choppers on tank armor, all enthusiasm and no dent. From up on my rubble, it looked like 20 gits trying to chop down a mountain with spoons. Loud, honest work, getting nowhere. The boss knob's power claws bit some. A track guard here, a gun barrel bent there. But them Dorns was built like the Hume they was named after, and the boys was discovering, live and in public, the difference between hitting a thing very hard and hurting it. Any other day, this is where the big boss arrives and the story ends early. This wasn't any other day, 'cause while all this was going on, the worst luck on Armageddon was happening in one small place, and that place was wherever Gazkul Mag Uruk Thraka was standing. I saw all of it. I want that known. From me rubble I had the view a teller dreams of, and what I'm about to tell yer, no other grot can tell yer true, 'cause no other grot was looking. They was busy, and no orc will tell it at all, 'cause orcs don't tell this kind of story about the prophet, but I'm a grot, and grots tell what they see. It's the only wealth we got what fits in a pipe with us. The big boss and his own mob, his chosen lads, the hardest boys on the field, with the god Makari carrying the gold banner in the middle of 'em, had come up through the ruins on the shortest road to the tanks. He was close. He was maybe one good charge away, and a Gazkul charge is a thing what gets measured in city blocks. He'd have hit them tanks like the fist of Gork, and every grottin' boy on that field knew it, and I reckon them tank crews knew it best of all. And that's when the Hume guns found his stretch of street. Shells come down all along it, into the road, into the rubble, into the one building on that block what had been stubborn enough to stay mostly upright for all them years. It stopped being stubborn all at once. The whole face of it come down on the big boss and his lads, hundreds of tons of Hume masonry, dust going up like the hive was sighing, and the charge what would have ended them tanks, just stopped, buried. Nothing on Armageddon can kill Gazkul Thraka with a building. The rubble heaved and cracked, and then it exploded upward, and out of it come the boss. Dust pouring off the mega armor, slabs of wall sliding off his shoulders like he was shrugging off a coat, and the roar he let out then wasn't a wah. It was something personal between him and the masonry. He shook off the last of it. He set himself for the charge again. I saw the armor drop low, saw the claw come up, saw the whole street's wharf of orc get ready to happen to them tanks. And his leg didn't come. The mega armor's foot had gone down through the rubble into something underneath. A cellar, old pipes, girders, whatever dead Hume buildings keep in their bellies. And it had him. The biggest, meanest, most unstoppable thing on Armageddon, the prophet of Gork and Mork, the terror of 1,000 worlds, was stuck like a boot in the mud. He hauled and the ground held. He twisted, and girders somewhere down there groaned and held. He brought the shoot around, a Mork's roar, a gun what other guns tell scary stories about, and hosed it at them tanks in a fury, and I swear this on all 4 of me points from that day. Even the bullets had bad bad luck. Half of 'em found broke walls and rubble heaps between him and the targets like the ruins was leaning in to catch 'em. And he stood there, held by the ground itself, and he watched. Watched the boys clang their choppers off them tanks like a percussion section. Watched the tanks shoot back zealous into all that green. Watched the rest of the field, and this is the bit what must have burned worst, 'cause everywhere else, the tide was rolling like Gork's own steamroller, flanks folding, ruins swallowed, loot getting looted, and spots getting took, green from wall to broken wall, victory happening wholesale in every direction except a one small circle of Armageddon containing 2 stubborn tanks and Gazgkul Mag Uruk Thraka himself. All the luck of that battle, everywhere except there. Now yer can hear the other tellers if yer want. They'll say coincidence. They'll say the fog of war, whatever that is. I've fought in fog, the war's the same, you're just wetter. But you and me, we had the important conversation already back at the start. Go on, Fink. What stands closer to the big boss than anything else on the field? What stands in the middle of his mob shining, with bullets going round it like fish round a raw? The god was standing right there, and the god was drinking deep. Every scrap of luck in 100 paces, the boss's charge, the boss's footing, the boss's bullets, all of it drained up quiet as breathing into that one small shining grot with the banner what nothing never happens to. I watched Makari wave that flag over all that misfortune, untouched, unbothered, gleaming like a coin in a cesspit, and I understood I was looking at the only thing on Armageddon what was having a better day than us grots. You might ask, why would the god do that to the prophet? And that, my friends, is why grots don't argue theology with orcs. An orc would say the god wouldn't, and then crump yer for asking. A grot knows better. A grot knows gods is like bosses. The question ain't never why they take what's yours. The question is only what they're saving it up for. I didn't know the answer yet, but I'm ahead of me story, 'cause the boss got his leg out, tore it free with a sound like the Hive losing a tough, stood up out of the wreck of that street with his mob forming up around him. Fewer of 'em now, and dustier, but ready, and for the 3rd time that day, Gazkul Thraka set himself to charge them tanks. And that's when the big humies come. They come out of the side ruins at a run, and the ground passed the news along before me eyes did. Boom, 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 like the building collapse had decided to happen again, but in installments. Humies, but big ones. Not proper big, not orc big, but big enough that somewhere up the Humie family tree, somebody had clearly had an interesting evening with an ogre. Slabs of muscle and slabs of armor, carrying slabs of shield, carrying clubs what a knob would have called showing off. Bullgreens, the Humies call 'em. There was half a dozen. They hit the remains of the boss's mob like a door full of doors. And behind 'em, small and loud and entirely unbothered by the size of anything on that street, come the Hat. A Humie officer, long coat, shiny buttons, a tall black hat with a gold bird on it, one of them little glowy pistols in one fist, and a sword in the other. And a voice on him. Yer could hear it through the whole scrap. Over shooters, over shellfire, over the Bullgrin's boots, cracking out hummy orders like a whip. Shields this way, advance that way, hold, strike, hold. And the big ones heard and did it. Shields swinging together, wall here, wall there, all 6 moving like one thing with 12 legs and one horrible hat. The grots round me started calling him the Shouty Humie before the fight was even proper started. And the name stuck, 'cause grots is poets, and also it was accurate. And then I watched somefin I never thought I'd see, and I'll tell it slow, 'cause it deserves tellin' slow. Gazkul Thraka waded into them Bulgrins, and it went wrong. You have to understand what the claw is. Gork's claw, dat thing don't fight things, it sorts 'em. One swing, one dead thing, that's the arithmetic the whole galaxy's agreed on. A Bulgrin to dat claw should be one blow, and the blow should barely notice. First swing, shield. The shouty Humy barked, and a slab of armor glass and plasteel got in the road, and the claw took the shield and most of the arm behind it. But not the Bulgrin, what staggered back into his mates and stayed up. Second swing, da git leaned, da hat shouted. Another shield caught half of it, and the blow what should have ended him just ruined him a bit. It took a third to put him down proper. Three blows from Gork's claw for one hummy, and the next one took two, and the one after that took another three. And every extra blow was a thing I could see landing on the boss heavier than any shell that day. He was killing 'em. Make no mistake, nobody walked away from that claw. The street was filling with pieces of Bulgrin, and the mauls what come back at him dented mega armor and nothing more, but he was killing 'em slow. And slow for Gazkul Thraka ain't a speed, it's an insult. And all round him his lads was falling. Them mauls come down like they was demolishing something scheduled, and hard boys, the hardest, the chosen, went down under 'em, and the shield wall ground through the mob with the shouty Humy, snapping it left and right like he'd trained his whole life to fight things bigger'n him. What, fair enough he had. By the middle of it, the boss's mob, the mob what marched at the center of the whole, why, was mostly on the ground, and the boss himself was trading blows 2 and 3 deep with the last of the big ones, and every trade was costing him time he'd never been made to pay before. And in the middle of all of it, untouched, unhurried, gleaming, the god waved his banner. I watched Makari stand in that slaughter like it was a parade held partly in his honor. Mauls come down near him and found other places to be. A Bulgrin fell towards him, and the ground somehow arranged him elsewhere. The gold flag went back and forth, steady as a heartbeat, drinking the luck out of 100 paces of Armageddon, while the luckiest warlord in the galaxy learned what the rest of us pay for living. I'd have watched forever, but that's when Zodgrod come past me at a dead run, with his prod held high, and bellowed the words what I will hear in me chest till the day some get steps on me. Oi, the boss is getting crowded. With me, your horrible little miracles. And 20 grots poured down off the rubble and into the biggest fight on Armageddon. But don't let nobody tell your grots can't fight. Grots can't fight fair. What's different, and what's also why we're still here. We come in low, under the shields, 'cause a shield wall is only a wall if you're tall enough to be walled at. And we, my friends, is doorway height to trouble everywhere we go. Blast us up into armpits and eye slits. Knives into boot tops. Zodgrod's grab Zappa took a Bulgrin's leg out from under him with a crack and a smell I won't describe. And when the big one went down, he went down into 11 grots. And he did not get up 'cause we was very motivated and also points. The last 2 big ones died like that. One to the boss's claw, 2 blows, and don't think I didn't count. And the other one to us swarmed and stabbed and zapped from places his shield had never been introduced to. And then there was one Humy left on that whole street. The shouty Humy stood in the wreck of his wall of giants, coat torn, hat somehow still on, what I respected, and he did not run. I want that said in every tellin', running is the first thing a grot learns, the first thing, before walking, some of us, and this Humy never learned it at all. He put one boot on a dead Bulgrin like it was a parade stand. hand, leveled that little glowy pistol at the biggest thing in the galaxy, and shouted something in Hume what I didn't understand, but what had the unmistakable shape of an order. And Gazkul Mag Uruk Thraka turned and looked at him. The whole street went quiet in me ears. The boss's claw come up, slow, deliberate. The first thing all day he'd got to do at his own speed. The prophet of Gork and Mork, robbed of his charge, robbed of his speed, robbed of his arithmetic, was finally gonna get one proper crump out of this whole cursed morning, and the shouty Hume stood there on his dead giant and waited for it with his chin up. And 20 grots got there first. I'd love to tell yer we planned it. Nobody planned it. Yer can't plan a wave, and that's what we was by then. One wave of grots, blood up, points singing in our ears, 20 small bodies already moving in the same direction at the same thing, and the thing was him. He went down under us shooting and shouting to the very last, giving orders to a street with no Humies left on it. And I will spare you the details except to say it was thorough, it was professional, and it was ours. The grots of Armageddon killed the shouty Hume right out from under the claw of Gazkul Thraka. There was 1 second, one whole round golden second, where I stood on that Hume's hat and felt like the tallest thing on the planet. And then I looked up. The claw was still raised, and the boss was still looking. I have been scared before. I'm a grot. Scared is me home address. Scared is where me mail goes. But I had never in me life been looked at by anything that big what had just been robbed of anything that small. And I am telling yer, me whole existence flashed before me eyes, and it was short, and most of it was pipes. It was Zodgrod what saved us. He stepped in front of the mob, casual, like he was strolling, with the prod over his shoulder, and looked all the way up at the prophet of Gork and Mork, and shrugged and said, "Runts is quick, boss." And from somewhere inside the big boss there come a sound, deep, slow, like 2 hive plates grinding. It might have been a growl. To this day, there is a theological split among the grots what heard it. Half of us maintain it was the sound of our coming deaths changing their minds, and the other half swear that the prophet of the well laughed. Every way, he turned. 'Cause across the ruins, the last 2 things on Armageddon still fighting back was them tanks. Still shooting. Still shrugging off 2 entire mobs of boys what had been clanging on 'em since the charge like the worst band in the galaxy. And Gazkul Mag Uruk Thraka had had enough. What happened next took less time than it'll take me to say it, and I say it fast. He didn't charge like Orks charge. Orks charge like a party arriving. He come across that ground like weather, head down, claw back, a running mountain in yellow and black, and the boys on the first tank saw him coming and got off it. What is the smartest thing I ever saw a mob of boys do without being hit first? And just before he hit, and I was watching the whole thing. The God's banner dipped once towards the tanks, like a nodding head, like a pointing finger. The claw went into the turret ring of the first dorn the way my knife goes into cheese. There was a shriek of metal what I felt in me back teeth, and then Gazkul Thraka tore the whole turret off that tank. The whole turret, cannon and all, the bit what 40 boys had been beating on since mid-morning, and held it over his head and roared the roar he'd been owed all day, and threw it fro a wall. The boys went insane. There ain't another word. 2 mobs of 'em, whipped up past whipped, hit the last tank alongside him in one green surge, and this time it didn't matter that choppas don't cut tanks, 'cause the tank had bigger problems, and the bigger problem was already peeling its hull open like the tank owed him money and the armor was pockets. The second turret come off harder than the first. He was showing off by then. He'd earned it. 2 blows, 2 tanks. The things what had shrugged off 2 entire mobs of boys for the whole battle ended in about the time it takes Wicket to lie about a kill. And that, my friends, that is what the God had been saving it all up for. Think it fro, like I did, sittin' on a dead bull grin, watchin' the prophet stand on a dead tank with the whole field roarin' his name. All day, Macari drinks the luck. The charge fails. The luck goes in the flag. The leg sticks in the flag. The bullets wander. The shields catch. The blows go 2 and 3 deep. In the flag, in the flag, in the flag. All of it saved. All of it banked. And then, at the exact moment when the boss's fury was biggest and the whole was watching, the banner dips, and the god pays it all back out at once with interest. And Gazkul Maguruk Thraka tears the turrets off 2 Hume tanks like pulling teeth out of a downed git. That ain't bad luck. That was never bad luck. That was a god building up a proper payoff. Gods is like bosses, like I said. They take what's yours, and the only question is what they're saving it for. Well, now you're no. They're saving it for the show. And if you're asked why the god would let his own prophet spend a whole battle stuck, robbed, and embarrassed just to make the ending bigger, then you've never met a grot with an audience, and you're certainly never met a god what used to be one. That night the fires went up all over Death Mire, and the field was green from wall to broken wall, and the grots of Armageddon held the most important event of any battle. What is the countin'? It was the greatest tally in the history of our mob, and I'll thank yer to remember that history, as previously established, is what grots keep instead of getting things. The sneaky scouts. Ours. Everyone. Full points. No disputes. Well, one dispute, mine and Wicket's, ongoing regarding a certain gunner dead or mostly dead already. The case continues. The big ones, the bullgrins, 3 of 6 hours or part hours. What for things that size is points with a bonus for altitude. And a shouty Hume, and here the Council of Grots went on till nearly dawn. The shouty Hume was ruled triple points, on the grounds that he was an officer, that he never run, and that he was took. And I quote the ruling, right out from under the tallest claw on Armageddon. Wicket argued stealing a kill off Gazgakul. Thraka should score minus points on account of being suicide. Wicket was outvoted. Wicket is always outvoted. It's one of me favorite things about him. And Zodgrod Wurtsnaga, what had led Grots into the center of the way and pulled the boss's fight out of the fire, and then stood in front of the claw and shrugged, got a new name that night, and he'll carry it in every mob of runts on Armageddon forever, 'cause Grots is poets, the boss of bosses. He pretends he don't like it. He knows every grot what says it by name. The last thing I'll tell yer quiet, 'cause it's the true endin', and true endin's is quiet. Late that night I sat up on me rubble with the field below me, and the ash comin' down soft over Death Mire the way it always does on Armageddon, only it ain't all ash. Yer can see it in the firelight if yer know to look, the fine green dust settling into the mud, into the craters, in between the dead boys and the dead Humies alike, patient as anything. That's why this planet's holy, if you want my thinking. The Humies bury their dead and get bones. We leave ours where they fall and get reinforcements. Every boy what went down today is 1,000 boys coming up next year, and the Humies know it, and they hold their walls anyway. And I don't know if that's brave or just Hume, or if them's the same thing. And way off across the dark, in the middle of the biggest camp, I could just make out firelight catching on something small and gold, waving slow. The god still on his feet, still shining, still collecting.